Alright everyone, it's time to talk about the CoC starter assassin in Delirium. Yes, this is getting posted just as the second week is ending, but hey, it was worth it and you'll see why in a bit. Let me begin by admitting a couple of things. The first thing is that Cast Concrete is definitely a very sketchy league start, because it does require investment in the end. Personally, my start was pretty rough right until last week, where it got crazy with some drops, but that experience is not for everyone, so you do need to understand that starting with this kind of character is a gamble. Granted, I did everything I could to avoid spending a fortune, and thankfully I ended up with a well-rounded character that is a joy to play. And if you wish to keep playing him, he has room for improvement, as long as you have the currency to do so. The second thing is that I had my numbers tangled up. For a while I have believed that you needed at most 6.06 attacks per second without any cooldown recovery at all, or else you will skip casts. However, this is technically not true for this kind of build. After researching this topic for a while and blowing a frame fuse or two in the process, the conclusion I have come up with is the following. If you have 0 cooldown recovery, you're fine having more than 6.06 attacks per second. You can't go above 12.12 attacks per second, as that will mean that you skip casts beyond that attack rate. The 6.06 cap is for when you're only firing a single spell at a time in a CoC Cyclone setup. Since we have 2 spells, we can go up to 12.12 and stop there. Of course, if you get cooldown recovery speed on the gear or from the Awakened Gem, the rule changes, but that's a whole nother topic. This means that any additional attack speed is good, and because of that you shouldn't fear skipping casts. And I was wrong, but it didn't stop the other assassin from being an absolute powerhouse, and neither does it stop this character. But now I know that there is room for even more improvement, and if you want some of that, you should aim to get as close to 12.12 attacks per second. So let's talk about the character himself. We're gonna be playing an assassin because this fella over here is the king of critical strikes. Pretty obvious information, I know. Anyways, we're gonna be using Cyclone, and that is because of 2 things. Cyclone is the best skill for Cast Concrete. Cheap to use, stun immune, and easy to build around. And no, it's not generic to use it for Cast Concrete, you boring person. And B, staying mobile. The build is going to be using a rather obscure combination of gears, mods and passives to achieve optimal DPS. I had a lot of fun finishing this character since the last video, so strap on and get ready for a rather long video. As always, if you end up enjoying the video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. This is the first build on Delirium, and while the next one is still in the pre-planning phase, I plan to keep playing the league and sharing more content for you guys on the channel. So if you're into Path of Exile or the ramblings of a dude playing it, hey, be sure to join us. Anyways, we're gonna keep talking about the build, but before we do that, we're gonna take a look at the skill tree and ascendancy, and both of them gear, and the first and most important piece of gear is the weapon. You have 2 choices, either a global crit multi implicit 2-handed sword or a 2-handed axe with increased critical strike chance implicit. One offers greater damage while the other offers consistency. A good roll on either can outclass the other one, if that makes any sense, but in the end the option is up to you. In my case, I am using a Flesh Reaper, and the mod you need specifically is +1 level of socketed gems. Not only do the spells greatly vary benefit from that single mod, but since we're using an Empower on the setup, they get even more extra levels, which in turn ramps the DPS even higher. Besides that mod, we also want attack speed and either accuracy, global crit multi or crit chance. We also want no extra prefixes because there is literally nothing that helps in that slot on 200 melee weapons, especially when they are not influenced by Shaper or Elder or whatever. However, once you have the currency, you do need to multicraft the weapon with +2 levels of socketed support gems and spell damage with gain non-chaos as extra chaos damage. This is the most expensive part of the build and the only currency drain, I promise. And it should come at last, once you feel that you start lacking in the damage department. Moving on, the helmet needs to be either an Elder or Warlord base, because you want physical damage to spells, and area damage or increased elemental damage and global crit multi. Besides those, you want life and resists or accuracy or both. For enchantments, there is 4 options: Wave of Conviction Exposure, Elemental Weakness Curse Effect, Purifying Flame increased damage on consecrated ground, or Holy Flame Totem increased damage on consecrated ground. Any of this is fine. For the gloves, we use Grim Sorrow, and I recommend that you get them corrupted with elemental weakness on hit, as this way we can skip spending currency or a nicely rolled Hunter Influence ring with the curse. However, if you can't find the gloves, you will need that ring, so keep that in mind. The body armor is a carcass jack. If you don't want to use the carcass, a belly of the beast or a rare chest with resists and life is good as well. Moving to the necklace, the amulet needs life, and the incursion mod, cold resistance and cold damage leached as life. At the same time, try to get one with spell damage or global crit multi or both, and an open suffix to craft a minimum frenzy charge. We also anoint the amulet with divine judgment. Your rings are gonna need life, accuracy, a resist or 2, and an open suffix to craft frenzy charges. Next comes the belt, and it's a Stygian Vice with life and resists. Mine has a strength because the Flesh Reaper demands a good chunk, and I recommend that you also get a belt with a strength. With it changed to fossil mods, the only thing we have pending on the belt is crafting increased damage if you have an open prefix. The jewel on the belt needs life and 2 damage mods, as seen on the screen right now. Now we have the boots, and I recommend going for a pair with either Warlord, Crusader or Redeemer influence, because we can gain fists as extra fire, lightning or cold depending on the Conqueror influence. Alongside that one mod, we want life, movement speed and a resist or 2, maybe strength if you can muster. For enchantments, elemental penetration if you haven't killed recently is best in slot. I know that this entire combination of mods sound extremely expensive, so if you can't get similar ones to mine, just aim for life, resists and movement speed. For Gatorade flavors, at Series Promise, Taste of Hate and a Diamond Flask. If for some reason you are a god gamer with a Divination Distillate, use that instead of the Diamond Flask. The jewels on the tree have increased maximum life, crit multi and a damage mod, as you are seeing on the screen right now. Whew. Now we're done with the gear and we can talk about them gems. The CoC setup is going to go on the weapon, and we want Cyclone, Cast on Crit, Inspiration, Empower, Wave of Conviction and Purifying Flame. Also you need a level 21 Wave of Conviction and Purifying Flame gems, as that goes nicely with Empower and the gem level mods on the weapon. However, do not go for 2120, as they are not as much worth over the level 21 corruption. The auras are Herald of Ash, Hatred and Precision. If you can, link them to Enlighten, otherwise Precision stays at level 18 so that you have some mana left to cast the other stuff. That other stuff is going to be Withering Step, Frostbomb and Vaal Righteous Fire linked to a level 7 Arcane Surge and increased duration, so that goes in the chest as a 5 link. An Ice Golem and a Flame Dash linked to Inspiration, and a Holy Flame Totem with Combustion. And that's pretty much it for the supporting skills. Now that we're done with the gear, the tree and the gems, we can talk about the character himself. And I must admit that he ended up pretty nice. Cast on Crit is always a joy to play. It is a bit difficult to understand at first, but once you get the hang of it, it really showcases how powerful a build can become. I know, I understand, and I won't judge you if you tell me that CoC should not be a league starting build. It requires investment to get going. However, if you play it carefully, you can avoid spending a fortune on getting the character to a more than competitive state. As I said before, the most expensive thing on the character is the weapon, and that is thanks to the crafts. You could argue that the boots, the helm or the gloves are also currency sinks, but the only thing I can tell you is that I got these early on and they have stuck with me ever since, without needing any change at all. We are using a rather obscure combination combination on some of the gear, and that surprisingly has gone almost unnoticed for quite a while in Path of Exile. I've used countless Elder helmets with the same mods as you see in the build, and I'm actually surprised that the mod combination is not actively sought after. The amulet is probably gonna be a bit sketchy because we are gonna enter Cosprey's custom crit territory with the Cold Leech, but gimping the roll a bit with less damage mods should result in cheaper options. To be frank, this video took longer to make, and that was thanks to the freaking boots. I farmed the enchantment for a good portion of last night and today's morning, and that enchantment, while not precisely mandatory, is a huge DPS boost that is hard to ignore, and I had to commit to getting it one way or the other. As for improvements on the character, there is quite a few actually. The first one is the weapon, a Shaper influenced axe or sword with intrinsic custom crit, plus 1 level of socketed gems. We craft plus 2 level to support gems, attack speed, and either crit chance or crit multi is the GG option. With that, we can remove custom crit for the gem setup and replace it with awakened added fire level 2. Once socketed, this gem is going to become level 5 thanks to the gem mods we got, and at level 5, awakened added fire adds plus 1 level to supported fire skills. Both Wave of Conviction and Purifying Flame are fire spells, so you can see where I'm going when I tell you that if you get one of these weapons, the DPS is gonna become borderline unethical. The amulet could be slammed with a Warlord Exiled if it has an open prefix, and with luck get plus 1 level of all physical or fire skill gems, again greatly improving that DPS and turning it even more unethical. Otherwise, you could turn it into a talisman with a tier 3 Jorgen on research, and if it hits global crit multi, global fizz spell damage, or gain fizz as extra damage of a random element, again unethical DPS. If the rings have open prefixes, you can slam them with Crusader Exiles and with luck get spell damage, and that also increases the DPS. If you're feeling like the build is a bit squishy, you can refocus the belt to be a bit more defensive. With an open prefix and life catalyst quality, your belt can be slammed with a Hunter Exile for increased maximum life, and that is huge. Even if you don't want to use it anymore, the belt, aka a Stygian Vice, with increased maximum life and nice rolls, can make that single piece of equipment into a jackpot. There are other things that you can do, but in the end, it's all up to you. I'm just giving you ideas should you commit to playing the character for overtime. So that's gonna be it for this video and character. I had a blast playing with him, and I recommend that even if you don't start a league with this build, you still give him a shot because you won't regret playing with the character. And with that being said, I am done for now. I wanna thank you so much for watching today's video, and if you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a rating and don't forget to subscribe to the channel on the way out. Quarantine gang, rise up, and I'll catch you on the next video. Peace out.